Why Buddhism's hidden gods were erased from Western teaching. Here's something that'll blow your mind. Buddhism has gods. Tons of them. But when Buddhism came to the West, someone decided you didn't need to know that. They sold you meditation, mindfulness, inner peace, all the Zen stuff. But they left out the entire celestial realm that every Buddhist in Asia knows about. Why? Because Western culture wasn't ready for it. We'd spent centuries getting rid of Greek gods, Norse gods, Roman gods. We'd settled into monotheism. So when Buddhism arrived, teachers made a choice. Strip it down. Make it philosophical. Make it safe. But in the original text, the Pali Canon, the Tibetan scriptures, there's a whole cosmology of divine beings. There are devas, celestial gods who live in heavenly realms. There are Asherahs, warrior deities locked in eternal conflict. There's Brahma, Indra, Mara. Buddha never denied these beings existed. He just said something radical. Even gods suffer. Even gods are trapped in the cycle of rebirth. Even gods need liberation. That's the real teaching. But it got buried under Western adaptation. Think about this. Buddhism describes 33 different levels of heaven, each one populated by different beings with different powers. Some are peaceful, some are wrathful, some protect, some destroy. It's not that different from the angelic hierarchies in Christianity or the divine council in Judaism, but nobody talks about it. Why? Because it complicates the narrative. It makes Buddhism look less like a philosophy and more like a religion with gods. Here's where it gets interesting. These gods aren't just metaphors. In Tibetan Buddhism, deities like Tara, Vajrapani, and Mahakala are invoked, visualized, and worshipped. Practitioners make offerings to them, ask for their protection, build relationships with them. This isn't symbolic, this is devotional practice. But when Buddhism was packaged for America and Europe in the 1960s and 72nd, all of that got filtered out. It was too much, too foreign, too polytheistic. So what happened to the truth? It got hidden, not destroyed, just hidden. And here's the thing, if Buddhism hid its gods to fit into Western culture, what else did other religions hide to survive? What did Christianity erase to become the Roman state religion? What did Judaism simplify to maintain its identity? Every religion has a sanitized version for the masses. But underneath, there's always more. Take a breath. Close your eyes for a second. Ask yourself, what else don't I know? If this is hitting you, drop the word devas in the comments below. Tell me, did you know Buddhism had gods? Hit that like button if you're starting to see the pattern. And subscribe because we're just getting started. How Judaism's plural god got rewritten into one. Let me show you something that's been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years. Open any Bible to Genesis 1:1. In English, it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Sounds simple, right? But in the original Hebrew, the word used is Elohim. And here's the kicker, Elohim is plural. It doesn't mean God, it means gods. Literally, the verse reads, "In the beginning, the gods created." So why does every English Bible translate it as singular? Because somewhere along the line, someone made a choice to erase the plural, a choice to simplify, a choice to hide. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is biblical scholarship. Researchers have found ancient inscriptions in places like Kuntillet Ajrud in the Sinai desert that mention Yahweh and his Asherah. Asherah was a goddess, the divine feminine, the consort of the supreme god El. She was worshipped alongside Yahweh in early Israelite religion. There are even references in the Bible itself, like in Judges and Kings, where Asherah poles stood in temples. But over time, she was erased, removed, written out of history. Why? Because the monotheism we know today wasn't always the norm. It was a revolution. Early Judaism was henotheistic. They believed in multiple gods, but worshipped one above the others. Yahweh was chosen, elevated, made supreme, and the rest, they became demons, angels, or disappeared entirely. Baal, once a powerful storm god, became the enemy in biblical stories. Asherah, the mother goddess, was condemned as paganism. The divine council mentioned in Psalm 82, God stands in the assembly of the divine. Among the gods he judges became an awkward verse that most pastors skip over. But here's what nobody tells you. This transformation didn't happen overnight. It took centuries. It took exile, conquest, reformation, and control. The priests rewrote the texts. Kings enforced new worship laws. Prophets condemned the old ways. And slowly, a religion that once recognized multiple divine beings became strictly monotheistic. That's the Judaism that survived. That's the Judaism that gave birth to Christianity and influenced Islam. But the original version? It's buried in fragments, inscriptions, and passages that don't quite fit the official story. Now think about this. If the foundation of Western religion started with multiple gods and got narrowed down to one, what does that tell you about truth? About power? About who gets to decide what's sacred and what's forgotten? Breathe that in. Let it sit with you. Don't rush past this. Drop Elohim in the comments if this just changed everything for you. Tell me, does knowing God was originally plural shake your faith or expand it? Smash that like button if you're ready to question everything you were taught. And subscribe, because there's so much more hidden truth coming your way. What if Christian angels are just rebranded pagan gods? Here's where it all comes together in a way that might disturb you. The angels you grew up hearing about, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, they're not originally Christian. They're not even originally Jewish in the way you think. These names, these beings, these functions, they line up almost perfectly with gods from older religions. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Michael, the warrior angel who leads heaven's armies, that's the same archetype as ours, Mars, Thor or gods. Gabriel, the messenger who brings divine announcements, that's Hermes, Mercury messenger gods. Raphael, the healer, that's Asclepius, the Greek god of medicine. The roles are identical, only the names changed. Now, you might say, that's just coincidence. But let me take you deeper. There's an ancient text called the Book of Enoch. It was considered scripture by early Christians and Jews, quoted in the New Testament Book of Jude, revered by church fathers. But it got removed from the Bible, banned, hidden. Why? Because it tells a story the church didn't want you to know. It says that 200 angels called Watchers descended to earth, fell in love with human women, and had children with them. These children were the Nephilim giants, hybrids, beings of immense power. And these watchers taught humanity forbidden knowledge, astrology, metalworking, cosmetics, weaponry, sorcery. Does that sound familiar? Because it's the exact same story told in Greek mythology with the Titans, in Norse mythology with the Vanir, in Sumerian myths with the Anunnaki, gods descending, breeding with humans, teaching secrets, creating chaos. The structure is identical across cultures, so either these are all separate myths that coincidentally tell the same story, or they're all describing the same event with different names. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Christianity didn't invent angels. It inherited them. Then it rebranded them, stripped them of independence, removed their sexuality, their rebellion, their complexity. Angels in official doctrine are servants, no free will, no desire, personality. But the old texts show the opposite. They show beings with ambition, love, jealousy, and rage. Lucifer wasn't just the devil. He was the most beautiful, the most powerful, the one who wanted equality with God. He was a god himself who got demoted into a villain. And this happened everywhere. When Christianity spread through Europe, it absorbed local gods and turned them into saints. Brigid, the Celtic goddess of fire and poetry, became Saint Brigid. Odin's mythology influenced depictions of God the Father. Pagan temples were rebuilt as churches. The dates of pagan festivals became Christian holidays. It wasn't erasure, it was assimilation. The gods didn't die. They just changed costumes. Put your hand on your heart. Feel it beating. Ask yourself, what if the divine has always been multiple, fluid, and vast, and religions just keep trying to control it? Comment watchers below if this is blowing your mind. Tell me, do you think angels and gods are the same beings? Drop a like if you're seeing the patterns now. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next, because this goes even deeper. Why all three religions chose to hide the multiplicity of the divine. Now, let's connect all the dots. Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism, three completely different religions from different parts of the world, right? Wrong. They all did the same thing. They all started with a complex, messy, mysterious vision of the divine. And they all simplified it. They all chose control over chaos. They all hid the multiplicity to create unity. And once you see the pattern, you realize this wasn't accidental. It was strategic. Judaism went from Elohim, a divine council, Asherah standing beside Yahweh, to strict monotheism. Why? Because after the Babylonian exile, the priests needed identity. They needed to separate their people from surrounding cultures. So they emphasized one God, one law, one chosen people. Everything else became idolatry. The gods became demons. The goddess became sin. And a religion that once acknowledged divine complexity became the foundation of exclusive monotheism. It worked. Judaism survived when other ancient religions disappeared. But survival came at a cost, the cost of forgetting what was there before. Christianity did something even more radical. Early Christians, especially the Gnostics, believed in layers of divine beings. They spoke of eons, emanations from the source, with names like Sophia, Logos, and Barbello. They believed Jesus came to reveal hidden knowledge, not to create a new religion. But in 325 AD, the Council of Nicaea changed everything. Emperor Constantine needed unity for his empire, so the Church voted on what was true. They created the Nicene Creed. They defined the Trinity: Father, Son, Holy Spirit, three in one, nothing else. And everything outside that? Heresy. The Gnostic Gospels were burned. Alternative teachings were silenced. And Christianity became uniform, controlled, institutionalized. The mystery was traded for power. Buddhism took a different path, but arrived at the same destination. Instead of denying the gods, it transcended them. It said, yes, gods exist, but they're not enlightened. They're still trapped in suffering. The real path is liberation, not worship. That was revolutionary in ancient India, where Brahmin priests controlled religion through rituals to the gods. Buddha said you don't need the gods, you need awakening. And that message undermined the entire religious power structure. But when Buddhism came west, even that got stripped down further. The gods were removed entirely. It became psychology, meditation, wellness, secular, safe, marketable. So here's the question nobody asks. What are all these religions protecting us from, or protecting themselves from? Is it that the divine is too wild, too multiple, too uncontrollable for institutions to handle? Is it that if people knew there were many paths, many gods, many truths, they'd stop obeying one authority? Power requires singular narrative. Mystery doesn't. And maybe that's the real revelation here. Maybe the forgotten gods aren't gone. Maybe they're just waiting for us to remember, waiting for us to stop asking permission and start seeking truth on our own terms. Close your eyes. Breathe deep. Feel that knowing inside you, the one that doesn't need a book or a priest to tell you what's real. Drop mystery in the comments if you felt this in your soul. Tell me, which revelation hit you hardest? Smash that like if you're ready to keep questioning everything. Subscribe because we're going deeper into every sacred secret they tried to bury. And if you think someone else needs to hear this, share this video right now, because the truth doesn't spread unless we spread it.